Who is the biggest investor in Latin America but China? So two questions arise. One, will China just sit back and allow its investments to be taken away? And two, will Latin American governments want to be dominated by America?
What you find, I mean, particularly in the CIA, is you find that people on the ground, their agents on the ground, are very sensible. They understand the issues and they know what should be done. But it's really when you talk to the people up the chain, as it were, towards the political end, if you like, of the business, that all this gets lost. I mean, they just, they ignore the advice from their operatives on the ground in the interests of some greater good or whatever it might be. And the result is that you get an intelligence service which is just, in terms of advising a government, is not fit for purpose. And that, I think, is almost certainly the situation in MI6. GCHQ is another one.
That's why you have to question this inverted commas truce between China and America. It's not really a truce.
No. And these Chinese, I tell you, they're damn clever. They know what they're doing.
They are preparing themselves for when this political truce ends, sometime second half of next year.
The problem here is that as it starts really going wrong for America and Trump, I think they're going to start panicking. What we've said, I think that's probably the answer. So where actually was your father worked for Union Miniere, didn't he? Have I got that right?
No, he was asked by the copper companies in northern Rhodesia to set up a group called Rhodesia-Congo Border Power Corporation that would link the hydroelectric station in the Belgium Congo with the thermal stations on the copper belt of northern Rhodesia. And so that when one was in short supply, you imported from the other country, etc.
Yeah,
and it was all financed, which is interesting, not with dollars or cash, but with copper and cobalt.
Yeah.
Well,
it was a major resource. Yeah, it was a major resource during the war because my father, as an intelligence officer, his first job was to protect the railway line running up to northern Rhodesia from the Bund, the extremists in South Africa, the Nazi sympathizers, as it were, because it was thought that they would,
like in Ukraine today.
Yeah, like Ukraine. Yeah. It was thought that they would sabotage the railway. So he flew up from Durban, and the pilot sort of in those days, the only way the pilot would know where to go was to follow the railway line, and they would dip down to see what at a station to see which station it was. So that was my father's first involvement with that. And of course, later on, during the Mau Mau in Kenya, he went into special branch, which was the intelligence side of police, and ended up chief superintendent based in Nairobi, when again, he acted as agent for MI6, passing through stuff, if you like, particularly finance into the Belgian Congo to support their agents. It was actually quite interesting because at that time, an awful lot of Europeans came out of the jungle who hadn't been seen for goodness knows how long. But going the other way were Pakistani traders. This is the way we make money, with black markets and all the rest of it. And the whole thing was just sort of really quite fascinating. But I mean,
so what's going on in Africa today? We were just talking off air about China's involvement in Africa. What's the situation there? Because I had Professor Zhang on the other day, and he was telling me that anyone visiting anyone visiting either the Congo or Japan, right? The two are interchangeable, right? Would receive a black mark on their reputation in China. Are we about to see something blow up in Africa, or are we being set up for something to happen in Africa?
Over to you, Stanley, on that one.
Let me give you some background of what's going on in the DRC, because I think it's going to be the new battleground between China and America. America has signed a new agreement with the president of the DRC, whereby any new mine ventures, American companies get first choice. This was followed up by the DRC having a promotional exhibition in Washington. Obviously, telling America's companies what all the riches, the mineral riches exist in the DRC. A very close colleague of mine here in Dubai has just come back from 3 months in the DRC and Zambia, mostly in the DRC. And he was telling me how the DRC has imposed new restrictions which have not been publicized, whereby it's not just a visa you require to get in, you need a special government license. And he was flying from Lubumbashi to somewhere else. And the somewhere else was in the depths of nowhere, but mineral rich. And the plane was full of Chinese and Indians. They were all turned back because they did not have this special government license. He was the only one off the plane that was allowed to stay. At many other instances, he was saying how the Chinese now, instead of having easy access to everything, are actually having a difficult time. So one starts to wonder whether this is phase one, with phase two going to be where China's investments in the mines in the DRC will be taken over by the government and then into America. That's what I think is going to be the battleground, because at the moment, the DRC is the largest exporter of copper to China, larger than Chile. I think it's something like 1.4 million tons a year and growing.
And of course, cobalt is the other thing, isn't it? Which
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I don't know the answer, but I seem to recall the Chinese were building a railway from Mombasa through Nairobi, through Kampala, and it was meant to be extended into the DRC, really to pick up ore, as I understand it. We don't know, I think, how far that has got. It's still under construction, I believe. Do you have any information on that?
No. All I know is it's still under construction. The two main export routes are to Dar es Salaam and down to Lobito. It's interesting that most of the copper that exits the DRC goes, or I should rephrase that and say a lot of the copper and cobalt that's exported out of the DRC actually goes into the Ndola bonded warehouse in Zambia.
Right.
And that's where the Chinese traders pick the metal up and pay for it. So the payment is seldom in the DRC itself because it has not a safe traditional banking system, whereas Zambia does.
Yeah.
Interesting, because this kind of goes in the face of the national security strategy document that was released a week or so ago. It's basically a Monroe Doctrine 2.0, where America would, relinquish its global hegemon ambitions and just kind of focus on the Western Hemisphere. It sounds like that's not really the case. You still have their tentacles in Africa, and then also, what about the other European countries that are present there, like France and so forth? Isn't there a war between Russia and France for Africa too?
Well, that's North Africa. That's Sahara. That's Chad and all that sort of area.
And West Africa, yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, how much copper is actually being mined in Zambia now? Do you know? I mean, presumably the Chinese still have access to that.
The Chinese are, again, the biggest buyer. The current production in round tonnage is 800,000 and forecast to be 1 million tons by 2030.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating because, I mean, that would explain, if you like, Chinese presence in Zambia in a very, very big way. I mean, it was interesting. Quite some time ago, I was chasing up something which was in my grandmother's will, the state of she died, because I got a call from one of these air hunters who said, am I right in thinking you've got some shares in something called Chinyanga Cement? Now, this goes back to the days when they built the Kariba Dam. There was a huge, great sort of cement manufacturing bubble. And what they were doing was they were trying to clear up the old registers. And I remember once ringing up Lusaka to find that all lines from London are engaged. I was told that in English and not in Chinyanja, but in Chinese. I thought, interesting.
Talking about Kariba Dam, this is going back decades. My father was on that commission to decide whether to build the Kariba Dam or the Kafui Dam. Oh. And I was invited as a school kid to come along with him, not to be part of the commission negotiations, but to enjoy the wild of the Kariba Dam. And the funny story is that all of us at the dining room table was saying to the lady who ran the camp, why is it that your vegetables are so delicious, soft, and huge? The answer was, we use elephant dung.
Indeed.
Can you get that at the local grocery store in Dubai or in the UK, Alasdair, Simon?
No. I haven't seen, we don't have it. We don't have elephants here. So you in the UK and America have zoos. Go to the zoos and collect the elephant dung.
Worth the price of admission on its own, right?
Yeah. Well, perhaps we ought to start importing it, shipping it in. I mean, the farmers are going to need it here, that's for sure. I mean, the country's being paved with solar panels, and there's not much left to produce food. So we could do with every bit of assistance, I think. Anyway, we're getting off topic a little bit, I think.
I mean, we're long past topic here, but yeah, I mean, since we're on the topic of China and America and in Africa and in the world, is this also is this what's connecting Venezuela to China as well? Is what's going on in Venezuela right now with this saber rattling between the U.S. and Venezuela? Is that just to keep China and Russia out of the Western Hemisphere? Is really all that it boils down to, or is there something more to it?
Because China and Russia, and China in particular, have big investments in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. And they have been supplying Venezuela with anti-missile defense equipment. So if you're going to enter into Venezuela, are China and Russia going to sit back and do nothing?
Yeah, big
I
question.
doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you referred to Monroe Doctrine Mark II, and the one thing I sort of suspect is that the deep state in America has decided that really, if you like, a la Mackinder, they better concentrate on their own hemisphere. We've had statements to this effect. And of course, they've managed to prize Argentina away from BRICS. And I think that, Venezuela, if you like, is very much in their sights. And as well as that, you can see all the disruption that they're creating and the talk. They want to get Brazil as well. And so I think, I can see that America has really decided that it really does not want China and Russia on its back door, or at least to its south.
And it got Chile. We got Chile just a few days ago.
But if you go in, I was listening to some guys who are experts on this, and the basic thrust of the Monroe Doctrine as it relates to Latin America is Latin America is our backyard and you foreigners get out.
Yeah.
And who is the biggest investor in Latin America but China?
Mm.
So your two questions arise. One, will China just sit back and allow its investments to be taken away? And two, will Latin American governments want to be dominated by America? Because America comes in with a political string, whereas China doesn't. It's a trade deal. It's an investment.
I think that's a very good point, actually. Yeah. I mean, all the sort of, if you like, the emerging world has had the American experience. We'll give you money, which they don't actually need, so that you're indebted to us. And if you don't do what we do, we will enforce regime change. I mean, that's the American approach. Whereas, as you say, Simon, I mean, as far as China is concerned, they say, it's sort of, can we do a deal? A business deal.
Yeah, absolutely. From which both of us can benefit.
Yeah, exactly. And, America's got, I mean, in the days of the Cold War, there was some sense in it. But ever since that, I mean, the whole of the doctrine has just been, it's just made America hated around the world. I mean, there's no other description for it. And of course, this is really what China and Russia in partnership running the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and BRICS, that's really where they are benefiting. They're just picking it up. They don't have to do anything.
Absolutely. They don't have to do anything.
Could it be possible that there's a grand bargain at play here, in the sense that America would take over South America, and including Venezuela and Cuba, and then Russia would take over Ukraine, and then China would take over Taiwan? Could there be something like that in play here as well that we may not be aware of?
My view is no. But Simon, you probably know a lot more about this from your context.
Anyway. That is what Trump would like to see emerge. Hence, he has been talking about, we don't have G7 or G8, we have G5. Mm. And who are G5 members? America, Japan, China, Russia, India. But those three countries have learnt painfully not to trust America. So that ain't going to work.
Well, Kissinger said it best: to be an enemy of America is dangerous, but to be an ally is fatal.
Yes, absolutely. Dead right.
Yeah.
But I think that this comes back to what's going on in Ukraine now, all this talk about peace. Nobody's talking about what does Russia think. And what Russia thinks is very simple. We go back to what we said, or what Putin said in June 2024.
Yeah, and it's not that's being discussed. Yeah, no ceasefire. We want a treaty, a simple treaty. No NATO in there. We get our bits on the east side, including Crimea. Otherwise, forget it, and it'll be one on the battlefield. And that's still the situation as I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And in fact, it's been made even worse by the EU announcing that they are going to hold Russia's, whatever it is, 210 billion euros indefinitely.
Yeah.
Well, part of any agreement, before you actually sit down to negotiate, Putin says, we want our money back.
Yeah. It's
even before we sit down and negotiate.
It's theft.
And then, of course, Larry Fink is now part of the Washington's negotiating team. So what does he want? He wants his money back that he's invested in land mortgages.
Yeah. Well,
but who is the big player? The big player is Russia. Is Russia going to allow European and American companies to rebuild Ukraine? And most of Ukraine will be Russian by then. Come on.
I agree. And the one thing that this has exposed is the ridiculousness of the European leaders. I mean, they are so out of their depth.
Well, they're delusional.
Yeah, they're dangerous. I mean, it's just, their attitude, and particularly their intelligence services. I mean, we've had the woman who runs MI6 in the paper today. I mean, the delusions start right from our intelligence services. I mean, this is frightening. This sort of disinformation, lack of understanding, lack of communication, no back doors, no whatever. This is what leads to war. I mean, it really does. And I think this is a very underestimated risk of that actually happening. And it'll happen because of our stupidity. I mean, it's just remarkable. I think in this, I'm not a great Trump supporter, but I think actually he's a lot closer to the mark in terms of handling the Ukraine situation than the Europeans. The Europeans are actually very, very dangerous with their disillusion. I mean, they just don't know what the hell they're doing. It is frightening.
No. This is. I'm actually getting a perspective here. Oh, go ahead.
If I can,
go ahead.
If I could add to that, Alasdair, is that why are in particular UK, France, and Germany so insistent that the war must continue? It's because they need a distraction from their own problems of public and hidden debt. The electorates of their countries hating Brussels, and the issues arising from immigration.
Yeah.
If they don't have a distraction, Europe is finished.
Yeah, they're doubling down on stupidity is really what it boils down to.
Absolutely.
So what's happened to MI6? Because I know, Alasdair, your father had a background in MI6. Are there any sane people still in MI6 that you're aware of that are pushing back on this, or?
I think that's a very good question. I mean, in practice, I think what happens in these intelligence services, and Simon, I think you're a lot closer nowadays to these operatives than me, but what you find, I mean, particularly in the CIA, is you find that people on the ground, their agents on the ground, are very sensible. They understand the issues and they know what should be done. But it's really when you talk to the people up the chain, as it were, towards the political end, if you like, of the business, that all this gets lost. I mean, they ignore the advice from their operatives on the ground in the interests of some greater good or whatever it might be. And the result is that you get an intelligence service which is just, in terms of advising a government, is not fit for purpose. And that, I think, is almost certainly the situation in MI6. GCHQ is another one. I mean, they've decided who the enemies are. So anything that comes from wherever, is enemy stuff. Like cyber wars and all the rest of it. I mean, there is this basic assumption which is driving the whole thing, and I find that extremely worrying.
I agree. I mean, you hear all of this stuff coming out. Oh, Russia's economy is crumbling. They're losing the war. We just add on a few more sanctions to Russia and the country will collapse. And it's the same about Iran. Without us doing anything, Iran is going to have a regime change. The economy is falling apart. We've destroyed all their missile sites. It just goes on like that. Whereas you talk to people who really know Iran, like I have a friend here who has access to that sort of stuff in Iran, and it's all, excuse my language, bullshit.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And the same applies to China. The word gets around to Trump. Just another push and a shove, and China will collapse.
It's just ridiculous. I mean, and you made the point earlier, Simon, that when they, sort of produce sanctions, it all backfires. I mean, China is now the global leader in consumer technology. I mean, okay, I don't know what her position is with military technology, but I bet she's not far behind America. If anything, in some senses, she's probably well ahead with things like supersonic missiles and all the rest of it. Probably drawn to a partnership with Russia.
Yeah.
You sanction these guys, and what happens? They learn to do it themselves and better, because then they don't have the legacy of industrialists telling governments how to do it, because that's it'd be rather uncomfortable for any innovation to happen, sort of thing.
That's why you have to question this inverted commas truce between China and America. It's not really a truce.
No. And these Chinese, I tell you, they're damn clever. They know what they're doing.
They are preparing themselves for when this political truce ends, sometime second half of next year.
Oh, that soon?
Yes, it's a one-year truce.
I would go along with that. And I think, just looking at it from the monetary side, I see inflation being very underestimated in the West. And I think by that time, you will see the purchasing power of the dollar going down at an alarming rate. Now, what that means is that the price of gold will be going up, and it could be at that time or shortly afterwards that China decides to fix the rate of yuan to gold, and she's preparing, the world, her world, for this, with vaults in Saudi Arabia and also in Hong Kong, and doubtless lots and lots of conversations and arrangements being set up quietly behind the scenes with other ASEAN nations. I think second half next year could be a real turning point for us, going the wrong way, if you like. Whereas for China, they would stabilize.
I agree completely, because what we'll start seeing as a result of G7 monetary and fiscal policies is that 10-year Treasury, US Treasuries, and other long bonds will be starting to rise sharply.
Well, the yields.
The yield.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not just above 4%, but by the time we get into 2027, early 2027, you'll be looking at yields probably at 6% for 10 years. And by the time we're at the end of 2027, double digits.
Yeah. I see it higher and quicker. But we're talking the same thing. Yeah.
Do you think Do you think 1 year is enough time, though, to wean America off China, though? Because it seems like what they're trying to do is trying to consolidate the Western Hemisphere through South America to, get the resources through there to substitute what they were getting through China and so forth. And they kind of look like they're scrambling to get everything in order. Is a year's time really that feasible?
No.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think the problem here is that as it starts really going wrong for America and Trump, I think they're going to start panicking, and then all bets are off. They really are.
I agree.
I see.
So, nothing more than that. Yeah.
All right, quick break here, because if you're buying gold or silver the normal way, you're probably overpaying by a lot. And that's because most retail dealers quietly tack on these huge markups, sometimes 10%, sometimes 20%, sometimes even 30%. And you don't even notice it. It's like paying $115 for a $100 bill. Doesn't make sense, right? So that's why I've been using the Bullion Standard Pro. It's a membership that basically lets you buy precious metals at real wholesale prices. The same prices that dealers get. So no inflated premiums, no middleman games. Their platform updates every 5 seconds, straight from mints and distributors. So what you see is literally the real market. And here's the crazy part. If you buy something like this gold American Eagle, here's the amount of money you're going to be saving at the time of this recording, at least. So it basically pays for itself multiple folds on many occasions, depending on what you buy. And if you want to try it out, they're hooking up my viewers with an exclusive 10% off their first month. Just use promo code COSM10 at checkout. That's COSM10 at checkout. So if you're stacking, investing, or just tired of getting hit with hidden markups, check them out now. Bullion Standard Pro. Click on the link down below in the description box and use promo code COSM10. Now let's get back to the video.
So yeah, well, let's go ahead and figure things into. Let's go back, look back at the markets here. Let's take a look at the price of oil, because oil is connected to war and geopolitical tension, all that stuff. Oil is selling off. Is this an indicator that we aren't really at the midst of any major geopolitical breaking point here at the moment? Wouldn't oil be a lot higher if that wasn't the case? Because it's 55.91 today.
Well, it's getting close to our low point of 54.
Okay.
Which my tech guy has been saying for over a year. And I think that early next year, we will be seeing, we will be seeing one, the Ukraine situation deteriorating badly. That actually may be starting any day now. And secondly, before mid-year, I think the risk of an Israel attack on Iran, obviously supported by America, is a very real one.
Yeah.
So we will have oil end of next year, $150. What does that do to 10-year treasuries? What does that do? All this optimism that is coming out of the banks, etc. 2026 is going to be a bullish year. I question it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying, Simon. I'm coming at it from a slightly different end. And if you look at key commodities, like Dr. Copper, other base metals, food, agricultural produce, etc., all these commodities are turning up in terms of price. Oil is the laggard in this. Now, at the moment, it creates a sweet spot, say, for mining companies, because their energy costs are remaining low while the value of their output is rising. Wonderful stuff for them. But this is only a temporary thing, because behind the general rise in the level of commodity and raw material prices, is the declining purchasing power of the dollar.
Correct.
Only a matter of time before the one thing of which there is a huge glut, which is oil, begins to reflect that rather than the glut. And then you're going to see the price start rising. And once it starts rising, it's going to be quite difficult to stop. And as Simon says, if the situation leads to conflict, and it's the situation which is ripe for generating conflict, then anyone's guess as to where oil is going to go. I mean, $100 whatever by the end of next year, or is very, very likely. I mean, in my view, you just cannot rule it out. And of course, the other thing is that when I look at the gold price, I mean, that is front running the loss of purchasing power in the dollar and also the other fiat currencies. So what that tells us is there is a huge catch up to be done in raw material prices, wholesale good prices, and other costs. So you're going to see inflation through the roof, which is actually, loss of purchasing power of the currencies. That is on the agenda for the second half of next year. And under those circumstances, oil could well be $100 a barrel.
And look, I mean, talk about front running. You look at the oil service companies, they've already begun to run. Yeah. It's quite interesting. If you chart oil next to oil service companies, the OIH ETF, for example, you'll see a divergence between the two where oil goes down and the oil services companies go up. Now, that could, I don't know why that is, but one possibility is that there's capital being deployed into that sector because they're anticipating a rise in oil sometime down the line.
Yeah, I'd say it's a leading indicator. Yeah.
Alasdair, let me add a very interesting comment onto what you said about the debasement of fiat currencies. My friend who was recently in the DRC in Zambia was talking to a very senior DRC official. And he said to my friend, very soon, when we buy diesel, we will not be paying for the diesel in dollars or any other cash currency, but in copper or cobalt.
Yeah.
This is we're moving out of fiat, as you keep saying, Alasdair, moving out of a fiat currency world into a physical goods world. And if you own the physical goods, you are in the leadership.
Is that not going to put a target on their head, though, if they stop trading in US dollars?
No. I think this is the point is that China is too big, too important for America to play its own game. It's basically America's lost it. And, again, the dollar is overowned for this new world. So what happens when it's overowned? Well, you just get the hell out of it. And so, that's going to be part of the decline in the purchasing power of the dollar.
Absolutely.
But I think what you're saying there about trading copper and cobalt, for other commodities, I think is a very interesting point, because China has already gone this way with Saudi Arabia. They have a trade agreement basically so that the thing will sort of balance out. On the one hand, the Saudis export oil. On the other hand, China exports to Saudi Arabia a whole range of things because Saudi Arabia wants to invest on the ground, et cetera, build this new wonderful city, and so on and so forth. China is going to be in there helping. So you're going to end up with a small balance. And that's the only deal that needs to be sorted out. In other words, trade is one thing for another.
And the balance is declining. At the moment, the balance is $20 billion odd dollars, surplus Saudi.
Yeah.
But the rate that China is exporting stuff to Saudi, and the fact that China's oil production is rising rapidly, which is not generally known, and the fact that China will be increasing its imports of oil from Russia means that Saudi's exports of oil to China will be declining.
Yeah.
So in 5 years' time, probably, China has a trade surplus with Saudi, but it's all balanced by the gold in the vault in Saudi Arabia.
Yep.
And that's the way BRICS is going.
Absolutely. Fascinating evolutionary position we're in today. I mean, we're literally on the verge of some huge, great changes. And I just don't see our political class, I mean, particularly in Europe, they're out of their depth completely. They don't know how to respond to this. And China as strategists are brilliant. I mean, I'm not saying this because I love the Chinese or anything. It's just, they've got this view, this long-term view, which they won't be deflected from. They know what they're doing. They know where they want to get to. This is Confucius, if you like. I mean, the fascinating thing was
how's the economic outlook in China today?
Look, don't listen to all this guff about GDP and the property crisis rumbles on and all the rest. Forget it. It doesn't. Government statistics tell you nothing. All you need to know is that China's technology, the improvement of her communications, road, rail, the whole thing, is just on a scale we cannot imagine. And they allow people to do what they want to do. I mean, the only thing in China is don't mess with the politics. But if you don't do that, then you're free to do what you want. And so you've got this extraordinarily able and intelligent community of 1 billion souls all working together in a capitalist way. And we're descending into socialism and haven't got a bloody hope against this. If we sort of think we're going to compete with China, what we ought to do is just understand China and benefit from it, because they're producing so many benefits. I mean, the cheapness of their goods and the quality of their goods is so good. I mean, it's roughly where Japan was back in the 50s, 60s. And I remember in Africa, the tourists coming over from Japan, and I got so many pictures on safari of some bloody Japanese chap in front of me with his ears, sort of sticking out with a big Nikon camera. I mean,
have you seen these
now getting that wealth?
Have you seen like these Chinese supercars that they've been coming out with for like a quarter of the cost of what you would buy in America or Europe? I mean, you're pretty. I mean, I've never driven one. I don't know, but they look pretty cool.
Yeah. I think.
Did you see what BMW announced the other day?
Yes.
We can produce a car in China at half the price of a car anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Part of the issue is that they have used the A1 driven robotics in order to create humanoid factories. They already have the most efficient domestic manufacturing supply chain in the world. And now you're adding this on to their competitiveness. The rest of the world cannot compete and will not be able to compete.
And the point is that, this is the engine which is going to drive 70% of the world's population, because China is investing in BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation Organization members to produce this stuff, to produce their own stuff, to advance their own economies. And this is a brave new world. We're not part of it at all. We're sitting here, old-fashioned dummies, with leaders who are sort of old-fashioned socialists. I mean, it's just the dichotomy is extraordinary.
Yeah,
we are really losing on this.
It comes back to a basic principle that Washington cannot allow BRICS to mature enough to become a living rival to America's dominated world. Despite whatever is said in the strategic document, this is the bottom line.
Yeah, we have an America who doesn't want to give away its empire. If you
No.
Yeah. I mean, we Brits learned, I mean, we were tiny, so there's no way we could afford to continue it. My uncle actually was responsible as a colonial secretary for granting independence to quite a lot of Africa, and also Singapore, along with Reggie Maudling, who followed him. The instruction after the Winds of Change speech by Macmillan in South Africa, the instruction to the colonial secretaries of the day were, you've got to accelerate this process. And actually it did make sense because, Africans were becoming very, very politically active. And there's no way we could have actually stayed with it. But
at least we had the sense to negotiate our way out of it.
Exactly. And I mean, the ones that didn't go along were Rhodesia. And, well, South Africa was not part of us by then anyway, even though we still had good connections there. But, I mean, look what happened with Rhodesia. They refused to go along with independence under Ian Smith. And when it finally came, it was absolute bloody chaos. I mean, you had the most appalling tribal system, with Mugabe representing one lot, and I can't remember the name of the opposition man, but he was
Nkomo.
That's it, Nkomo. He was of a different tribe, and I mean, Mugabe's thugs basically, stole all the farms. I mean, there was no property rights at all. Impoverished white men who couldn't get back into this country because they didn't qualify, because they had been born out there, their fathers had been born out there, their parents had been, so they had no right to come back here, and we abandoned them. And this was the consequence, if you like, of not allowing the sort of, if you like, the political change which was actually happening on the ground to take over, if you like, from the colonial days. And America should learn by this lesson, because as sure as God made green apples, I think America's idea of being the global imperialist is going to come unstuck in the same way that Rhodesia came unstuck by not going with Britain's desire to allow the African self-determination.
Are we looking at a Pax Seneca at the end of all this, guys? Is that what you're going to conclude?
Sorry, say that again.
A Pax China, essentially, to replace Pax America?
No, well, the difference is, as Simon said, and I'm sure he will back this up, is that China's involvement with foreign nations is not to interfere with internal politics, but to just do business deals with them.
Exactly.
They're not running in bribing the politicians with overseas aid. I mean, where does the overseas aid go? It goes into the back pockets of the politicians. Africa is maturing from that. Those days are pretty much over. It still happens, of course, but as far as China is concerned, they will let the Africans run their own affairs, but they will want to explore the possibility of doing business deals, and can we help provide the communications on some sort of joint venture basis, whatever. That's their approach. It's not an imperialist approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dead right.
No, it's very fascinating stuff. I want to get so what we've been doing on the show for the last few weeks or so is I've been asking each one of my guests to lay out 3 big predictions for 2026 as we wrap up the year. So this is interesting. I have both of you on at the same time, so we can compare and contrast. But since this is most likely the last interview I may do with either one of you guys, I'm going to pose a question to you.
This year, I hope.
Yeah, this year. Big qualifier. Big qualifier. Let's start off with Simon. if you can, any big predictions, three, however many you want to list off for 2026. What you got?
First half of next year, most of the G7 countries, including America, are in recession. Second half of the year, we start getting the impact of fiscal and monetary stimuli, which leads to rising inflation, rising long bond interest rates that reach a peak in late 2027 or 2028 in double-digit figures, which crashes the economy globally, outside BRICS.
Interesting. Alasdair, what do you say?
Yeah, well, I think Simon's background, if you like, is pretty much spot on as far as markets are concerned. What I see is we have a huge, great debt come credit bubble. And that is going to implode. And I think it'll probably implode in the first half of next year. It might implode before the year end. I mean, it's in very, very dangerous territory, that is for sure. So that's the first thing. And that will lead to massive quantitative easing in America in particular, which will undermine the purchasing power of the dollar, which will be reflected in prices very much in the second half of the year. Gold will continue to front run that. So I see gold and silver, copper, other commodities rising very strongly in depreciating dollar values. So that's two of them, I suppose. You want a third one?
If you've got it in you, yeah.
I need to dig. And this is personal hope, actually. This is personal hope. I hope that we will see the British government fall and probably get a worse government to begin with. Maybe not.
You get a worse government?
Yeah, Simon, I kid you not. Within the Labour Party, the replacements for the Prime Minister and the Chancellor are even further left wing. That is the prospect. So we're going to kick out Starmer and Rachel from accounts. And we're going to end up perhaps with Miliband as Prime Minister and God knows who for Chancellor. I mean, look, we're in a self-destruct mode here. We really are. So that's the other thing I can say. Europe, not just us, but Europe is in self-destruct mode. And I think it'll become so obvious in the coming months that with a bit of luck, the population will wake up a bit. I mean, they're not going to wake up totally, but they might wake up a bit. And So the politics here, I think, is going to deteriorate before it gets better. Let's put it that way.
I see.
By the way, Alasdair, you probably know a mutual friend of mine called Robin Griffiths.
Yes, good man. Yeah.
So he has exactly what you say, a huge credit collapse starting March, April next year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to have someone confirming what I'm saying, I could hope for nobody better.
Exactly.
I mean, he's retired, Robin Griffiths. I didn't know that you'd get him on, Danny. But
he's still operating.
I've never heard the name, actually. What's his background? It sounds like it's pretty illustrious.
He was the technical analyst for Cazenove, which was our bluest of blue chip stockbrokers in London. He did that for many, many years. I see him very occasionally, but maybe sort of once every 2 years or something. Last I heard, he was hoping to go sailing around the world in a new yacht.
Yeah, he's planning to do that, but he works with a guy called Ron William.
Yeah,
called RW Advisory, and they produce every month joint reports.
Right.
You should have either of them, particularly Ron Williams, because he's the guy that does the work.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind connecting me to them, I mean,
no problem.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I have no connection with them. I just see Robin at lunches occasionally. That's probably once every 2 years.
When you go to speak to Halkin.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, absolutely. Indeed.
Well, gentlemen, it has been a great pleasure having you both on at the same time. I mean, the two of you guys individually are two of my favorite guests to interview, and two of the big two of the big names on the channel who generate the most views. So to have you both on at the same time really is a privilege. Thank you guys so much for your time. Anything else you'd like to talk about that we didn't get into before we bring this thing home?
I'd just like to add some family connection that Alasdair has with MI6. My father operated most of the drops into Burma during the war, and then headed up MI6 in Rangoon, where he was accused of murdering the Burmese prime minister. So that was the end of his MI6 days until the Belgium-Congo situation blew up, as we discussed earlier.
Oh, that's fascinating. Well, my father refused to. I mean, he was asked to join MI6 after the war because he was an intelligence officer. He spoke German as well. He interrogated Nazis in Bremen and round there as the area intelligence officer. And anyway, he married my mother instead of MI6 and started farming in Kenya.
Sensible decision.
Yeah. But then, of course, the Mau came along. He went back into intelligence because that was his shtick, as it were. I find it fascinating that your father, if you like, was sort of involved with the Belgian Congo from the southern end, whereas my father was sort of involved from the east side, as it were, of the thing.
Quite a coincidence, isn't it?
Absolutely,
in a way, our papas were working together.
They were. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether they ever knew each other. Probably not. But, it's all sort of, same thing, really. With some wonderful stories coming out of it. I mean, I can't remember them all, but, it just, I mean, one of the things that I do recall my father saying was that, while all these sort of white men who hadn't been seen for decades, weren't meant to be alive, coming out of the jungle all of a sudden, having gone completely bush, you had the Pakistanis going the other way because they saw an opportunity. Good for them.
Yeah.
And here you are 80 years later. Your father's sons both talking on a program on a platform called YouTube on the internet.
We would never have been able to guess that.
Yeah.
And we've never recounted these stories to each other before.
Not
so,
really.
Danny,
really,
it's you that has brought us together.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, Simon and I knew each other in London, but only about 20 years ago, I think we first met.
Yeah. God, was it as long ago as that? Yeah, it probably was.
So I'm like the ghost of Christmas past and present here. I'm rekindling the past and bringing you guys into the present.
Well, I think we'll stop the analogy there. I don't know who's screwed it is.
I agree. Yeah. Time is up, Danny.
All right.
Yeah, but we've got to get people to understand what the hell is going on and why the world will be like it's going to be in 2026. So all I can say on behalf of Simon and me is you subscribe to our Substack channels, and then you've got a chance maybe of understanding what the hell is going on.
But I can't agree with that. Simon, where can people find you if they want to see more of your work?
Simon-hunt.com or simon@shss.com.
All right. We'll have the link to your website down below. Alasdair, if you don't mind giving us the URL for your Substack as well. We'll have a link down below, but for people that are just watching on audio only or something like that, what's the Substack?
Well, MacleodFinance.com will take you there. And spelt how it is on very handily on my image here. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we'll have the links to all the websites and socials down below. Gents, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a great pleasure. I didn't know I was this is the first time you've kind of rekindled some of these memories. It's very fascinating to see. So I appreciate it. Let's do it again in the new year, hopefully. And guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, drop us a like and comment. Go Simon, go Alasdair, go in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Do you want to see more of these? Drop me your thoughts down below. We may start doing more panels like this if you're interested. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode. And by liking, subscribing, and commenting, you do help us in pushing this video and this channel in the algorithm. So it may not seem like much, but a little bit really does go a long way, guys. Just hit that like and subscribe. It'll help me out a ton, and it's free. Everyone's favorite 4-letter F word. And check me out on Substack as well, capitalcosm.substack.com. And so with all that said, I will catch you all later. Thanks for watching. Bye.